Hello everyone, Harry Baldock here, editor for Total Telecom. Today I'm really delighted to be joined by Mark Brewer, the VP of Service Industries at IFS. We've got a lot of very exciting topics to cover, including AI, sustainability, loads of cool stuff. So Mark, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Harry. Really looking forward to it.
So I guess to start us off, let's maybe have you introduce yourself a little bit more and tell us a little bit about IFS and particularly the work you guys do in the telecom sector.
Sure, pleasure. So yeah, IFS, we're an enterprise software vendor, a global enterprise vendor. We focus on just 6 industries, of which telco is probably the fastest growing, actually. I think the unique thing about us is we offer solutions for both the CSP side of the world and the infrastructure providers. So that could range from managing your mobile workforce that's doing all of your customer visits, to even something as complex as a network rollout project. We've been in the space for over 30 years, actually, and probably a lot of people won't realize that we're powering some of the world's largest telcos. For example, Europe's largest CSP, the largest equipment provider in the Western world, the UK's first network sharing joint venture, and even the national telcos of both Belgium and Australia. So, IFS is very, is very focused on telco as one of those markets.
So thank you for that, Mark. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was one of the biggest topics in the telecoms industry and indeed kind of the wider tech industry at the moment, which is, of course, we've heard it all the time, artificial intelligence. You guys are obviously kind of very well used to incorporating AI. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you're using that in your products and where you see the telcos gaining the biggest benefits from incorporating AI?
Yeah, great question. I mean, does a day go by without all of us hearing it somewhere? It's clearly pervasive now. I should start off by pointing out that AI isn't a new technology and certainly is not new to IFS. It's been embedded in our solutions for quite some years now. Telco as well, of course, is very adept at taking advantage of new technology. But I think whereas most technologies in the past have been evolutionary in nature, incremental in nature, I think AI has truly got the potential to be revolutionary in nature. Think, for example, of an expert sitting next to every one of your contact center agents, almost like a co-pilot, coaching them through a conversation. Or, for example, think of AI being the master planner of the mobile workforce and responding dynamically to events like job overruns or customer no-shows or traffic delays, for example. That's the sort of power that it can bring to the fore. But I think the most profound impact will actually be doing not what you're currently doing better, which is what most technology does, but actually creating whole new use cases and doing entirely new things. And in telco, ultimately, the ability to improve the customer experience is enormous. And it's that impacts loyalty and retention.
And of course, AI is really underpinned by data. Another question I wanted to ask you about was about your recent acquisition of Fakonry, it's of course an analytics company. What was the thinking behind this acquisition, and what does that mean for you guys as a platform?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Harry. I should take a few steps back. The world is moving from buying products to seeking outcomes. For example, think of people flow, not selling cars. Think of heating and temperature rather than boilers. And think of illumination, not light bulbs, if you will. The consequence of this is the tables have turned. And rather than one transaction that these models are driven by, the sales transaction, it's moving to an experience economy. And the recipients of the capability are the ones that judge it effectively. So think here, for example, of a great remote meeting rather than the technology that we need to provide it. Of course, behind the scenes, there's a ton of moving parts, a ton of infrastructure. And managing that, will become even more critical in this economy. So that's where Fakonry really comes in. Fakonry AI, to give it its full name, is an AI-based self-learning solution. It's monitoring these enormous volumes of data from the assets and from the infrastructure to perform a discovery of unusual behavior, to to use techniques like anomaly detection and pattern recognition on this time series grid, because things don't just happen out the blue usually. And unlike many of the technologies that have gone before in this similar space, by the way, you know, Fakonry doesn't need an army of data scientists. And that's where I think the real differentiation comes. Many of these projects have failed in the past because they need tons of expertise, and that's been on the ground. Ultimately, the beneficiary of all of this is our customers, but our customers as well, benefiting from this as a service experience economy, without all the headaches associated with downtime, call quality, latency. So for the first time, everyone is focused on the same thing, and that's the outcome. And that's what's very exciting about Fakonry AI to us.
And you've kind of already touched on it briefly there in terms of your platform dealing closely with enterprise asset management, field service management. Do you think CIOs understand the benefits of having them both together and kind of why that's such a big benefit?
Great question, and very of the moment for us. You know, it's starting to happen, and in other industries, I think we're seeing it more. There is this convergence occurring between asset management and service management. You know, on one hand, we've got maintaining the network, which has traditionally fallen under the domain of enterprise asset management, whilst the world of visiting customers, for example, to install a new broadband router, that's fallen under the FSM, the field service domain. The truth is, they're both two sides of the same coin. You know, what we call an infinity loop, or a figure of eight, if you will. Right now, organizations, they actually segment the organization, you know, almost artificially, because the processes and the systems that these jobs live in are separate. But that's come about from, you know, constraints of legacy systems and legacy processes. We're seeing a move toward a more holistic approach, a single asset record, a single blended workforce, and all the economies of scale that affords us. So ultimately, a single face to the customer, the 360 view, and that's why this convergence is happening, because it's better for the customer.
I think one of the last topics I really wanted to touch on with you, Mark, was sustainability, which of course is, we're now moving into an era where telcos are really discussing scope 3 emissions rather than the kind of their own emissions. AI and these other kind of technologies that are really generating efficiencies, they can obviously play a really big role in that. What's your kind of take on all of this?
Yeah, another great question. You know, along with AI, you know, the ESG topic is top of mind for every boardroom that we talk to. Not least because it's actually influencing buying decisions and hiring decisions. You know, the ESG topic. So this time around, it's different. It's not a push model now. It's a pull model. You know, think more the carrot than the stick, if you will. I mean, just like AI, there's a ton of use cases for where ESG will impact the journey, and where AI will play a part in the ESG journey. Think, for example, the efficiency of maintaining the life cycle of the infrastructure, the equipment in the infrastructure, and how that relates to regulations like WEEE, you know, waste electrical, and ROHS, hazardous substances. So there'll be a greater focus on not just responsible recycling, but also actually refurbishing and remanufacturing, which we see in many other industries, by the way, avoiding procurement, which of course is expensive to the environment as well as to the pocket. So huge potential. And we were talking recently to an electrical retailer, a big one known to many of your customers, I'm sure. They tell us that for every 3 refrigerators that they're able to remanufacture, it's like taking a car off the road. Literally, that was what they told us, and they do thousands of these a week. Another example is EVs, of course, we can't ignore that. And many of your customers will be considering their EV rollout, their EV fleet deployment. We're taking it a stage further. We're actually optimizing the routes of the EVs in real time, based on the range telemetry that's coming back to our engine in real time. And by doing so, we can encompass more visits. You know, using those techniques, it's very typical in our customer base to see levels like 35% reduction in drive distance, which of course has got a very tangible relationship to the CO2 and to the ESG agenda. That latter example that I've just given you falls very often into scope 3 because the CSP has outsourced that network maintenance, i.e. those engineers, to a managed service provider, a third party like an Ericsson or a Kelly Communications. So, ESG, top of the agenda, and technology has an enormous role to play in exploring that.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, and everything seems to compound on top of each other with all the technologies playing their part to really make some really big changes. It's been really exciting. Mark,
Brilliant.
Thanks so much for your time today. It's been really great to talk to you.
Thanks for the opportunity, Harry. Really appreciate it. Thank you.